All right, guys, it's Robbie Starbuck. We have another company to expose today. You guys and myself, we have changed the woke policies and eliminated them at some of the biggest companies on earth. Today's not a change story, though. Today, we were exposing the parent company of Corona, Modelo Beer, and Pacifico. This company has gone totally woke, and it's time for their consumers to know what they've really been doing. The parent company we need to expose today is called Constellation Brands. I felt like it was very important for consumers to know everything about this brand because Modelo, one of their brands, was one of the biggest beneficiaries of the boycott against Bud Light. People leaving Bud Light were going and spending their money on Constellation brand beers. So I'm going to dive right in and just explain to you guys what this company has really stood for, but I need to start with something that's really funny. On an employee LinkedIn page, we were able to find out that they were very excited for sessions with somebody named Erin Reeves. So we went and checked Erin out. It turns out she's a part of something called the DEI Collective, and this was the first post where you can see her name listed underneath it. And it says, "Hey everybody, go read this article. It's a Forbes article that links to a lot of the biggest changes that we have made happen in corporate America." And then it says, if you're feeling frustrated, what you really need to do, sit down and scream for 2 minutes. But if you're having a really bad week, you might want to make it 3 or 4 minutes. Just saying. Have a feeling they're going to be screaming a little bit longer after this video comes out. You cannot make this stuff up. Constellation Brands champions DEI constantly. In fact, they say that DEI is critical to their future success. We'll see about that. But before we dive into all of their crazy DEI policies, let me show you just how much pride Constellation Brands has. They even lit up their headquarters for Pride Month. Yes, I am being serious. Constellation Brands also flew the trans progress flag at their company. And beer brands owned by Constellation Brands, like Corona, seem to be really big fans of funding Pride events. Like this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Listen, I don't want to be here all day, but you guys get the point, right? They even did a drag queen bingo night. And yes, Modelo is also very into Pride Month. Constellation Brands is another company that participated in the HRC CEI scoring system, basically a social credit system to see how much a company has pushed the trans agenda on their company. And they didn't just take part in the scoring system. No, they've gone the extra mile and hosted events for them. And they've even been named a 2022 Corporate Equality Awardee. And if the HRC seems familiar to you, it might be because they were in the news this week. You see, they had a gala where they had Jasmine Crockett as a distinguished guest. And Jasmine went on stage to call the governor of Texas Hot Wheels. Yes, the same governor who is wheelchair bound. So what human right is it they stand for exactly? Pretty much just pushing the trans agenda.
Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey. So yes.
Call me crazy, but making jokes about people who are disabled seems like a really weird look for a human rights organization. But yes, as I've laid out a million times, the HRC is explicitly partisan and spend most of their time attacking Republicans. As a company, Constellation Brands is also really big on pushing the idea of allyship with the LGBTQ plus community. In fact, if you are not an ally with the LGBTQ plus community, you are not truly a part of the culture that they're building. But you know what? Let's get back to their DEI initiatives. Constellation Brands has a Global Inclusion Summit and a DEI award, as well as a Global Inclusion Council. Sounds like a waste of money to me. Side note, according to Grok, if you are buying beer from Constellation Brands, you're helping invest in Mexico as well, because it appears they invest way more money in Mexico than they do in the United States, which seems like a weird thing for a company to do when they depend on US consumers to keep them alive. So instead of bringing jobs to the US, it seems like they're only interested in bringing DEI and wokeness. Constellation Brands also has what they call a diverse supplier program run by this lady here who says she's a disruptor making good trouble, which if you know politics is a reference to John Lewis's quote, good trouble. And if you're expecting fairness, well, check out this LinkedIn post where she's also posted that LinkedIn needs to create a black jobs category. If somebody could explain to me exactly what that is, I would love to know, because last time I checked, jobs are something people of every race should be able to do. She's also a big fan of GLAAD, an organization that supports child sex changes, and LGBTQ plus youth. She's also not a happy camper about Claudine Gay from Harvard being forced to resign after a plagiarism scandal. Shocker. And if you think that's the end of the crazy train as far as employees go, you would be sorely mistaken. They've also got folks like this working at the company. Pronouns are very popular, by the way, at this company. Christine wants her fellow employees to know how important Transgender Day of Visibility is and how to be a trans/non-binary/intersex ally. And it's important that you know she's part of the Stellar Pride BRG. That is a business resource group. Yes, Constellation Brands separates people by color and also what type of sex they like to have in these different BRG groups. Like I said, allyship and pronouns, very important in Constellation Brands. Christopher, however, is not an ally of mine because he does not seem to be a big fan of my work. And he is a big fan of the HRC. And you know how I helped get a bill passed here in Tennessee to ban sex changes for minors? Well, the Trevor Project stood up against it when it went to the Supreme Court. We won anyways. But Christopher was not happy with our bill. They did end up stopping sex changes for kids, by the way. So it was a wonderful thing. Doesn't matter how he feels about it. But just to give you an idea of what is going on in the corporate culture there. Again, pronouns. Big deal there. They love pronouns. In fact, meet Michael McGrew. He is the diversity officer at Constellation Brands and a vice president. Let's hear their commitment in his words.
Talk about this with my team. There has been no time when communication, CSR, IR, ESG has been more at the forefront of our company, like driving our company, a core pillar of our company's strategy than it is today.
Yes, you heard that right. There has been no time where ESG was more of a driving force behind the company of Constellation Brands than it is today. And if you're unfamiliar with ESG and its relationship with DEI, DEI is essentially within the shell of ESG. I'm not sure y'all are even ready for the next stop on this crazy train, but Constellation Brands and Modelo partnered with a group called Unidos US and gave them $500,000. And if you don't know anything about Unidos US, let me tell you a little bit about them. This is a quote from the president of Unidos US saying that Donald Trump's extreme rhetoric is fueling a rise in racism. She goes on to criticize President Trump for deportations, despite the fact that he ran on deporting illegal immigrants. Unidos US does not stand with average Americans. It stands with illegal immigrants and the illegal immigration agenda. So why is Constellation Brands getting so involved with a company that is explicitly partisan and again stands against the agenda that most Americans voted for, which was a safe border where we deport illegal immigrants? You know what though, maybe the term illegal immigrants violates some of their inclusive language practices. That's part of their stellar BRG's plan to educate and push allyship and advocacy throughout the company. I'd keep going, and honestly, there's so much more, but I think you all get the picture by now. This is a company deeply committed to DEI and wokeness. This is a company that did not deserve to benefit after the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light fiasco. They are just as woke, and in fact, from my view, I think they're actually much worse than Bud Light was. Bud Light did something incredibly stupid, but this company has institutionalized stupidity, and it is totally undeserving of our business in my view. As conservatives out there, as just fair-minded people, normal people who are sick of all the woke crazy stuff, it is time to stand up to these companies and say, we've had enough. We're not giving you our money. We have alternatives. Go buy whatever other beer you want to buy. But in my view, buying this beer is again saying it's okay that the company takes on these crazy far left positions. I'm not okay with that. And especially Latinos out there, you know that our families are not cool with this. You know that our culture is deeply rooted in family, in faith, in conservative values. Even if you don't vote the way that I do, you know that that is true. And you know that the stuff I've described here is deeply out of step with the values of most Latino families. And again, I draw a hard line at this stuff with kids. You should not be funding events where kids could be at pride events and they could be exposed to sexuality. You should not be funding any groups or supporting any groups that support child sex changes. All of these things are deeply out of step with the American public, with our electorate, and it is time to hold these companies accountable. We have had enough. We're not going to support it anymore. And if you want to give Mexico the money the consumers bring into your brand instead of investing here in the United States, again, we say we've had enough. We've had enough of being sold out to other countries. We want our money to stay here to support the American worker of all colors, and we want equal footing for everybody of all races. It's not hard to figure out. We just want a fair level playing field and a system that judges based on merit. We want you to get rid of all the woke crazy stuff and get rid of the people who push this into your company. Constellation Brands, we are asking you to change. If you want them to change too, read my full description. It will have contact information and ways you can reach out to Constellation Brands to demand change. And also, make sure you tag all of their alcohol companies in the comments below.